Welcome to the second Public Information Center for the 1 Port Street East proposed marina environmental assessment. The objectives of this Public Information Center are to present the preferred Lakeville alternative and the preliminary design of the park space and marina facilities, seek comments and feedback on the preliminary design and park space and marina facilities, present the environmental effects of the preliminary design, including the effects of construction, and seek feedback on this effects assessment. And finally, to update the project schedule and discuss next steps. This is the 1 Port Street East proposed marina EA timeline. We are at the second public consultation meeting of the environmental assessment, and we are hoping to have our third public information center this winter when the draft environmental assessment has been made available to you for review. The provincial EA review will take approximately 12 months, and we don't have any control over those timelines. Once we have approval of the environmental assessment, Council will make the decision on proceeding with the marina. As many of you are aware, we had a virtual Public Information Center from February 17th to March 17th, 2022. The Environmental Assessment Public Information Center number 1 materials and a pre-recorded presentation were available on the project website, and you were asked to provide feedback through a public survey. The city received 130 completed surveys, and there were over 550 views of the presentation. There were lots of questions and comments, and we've tried to summarize them here and on the next slide. We had questions about the effects of fish habitat, the visual effect of boat storage, the potential for a small boat launch, the desirability of the area for a park area given the strong winds and wave conditions, pedestrian access and park use of the parking lot, and there was also some discussion about how much of the Lakeville should be available for parkland and how much this should serve the marina. Responses to these questions were posted in a summary document. Through the survey, we also asked you to provide us with your perspective on the relative advantages and disadvantages of the small, medium, and large Lakeville alternatives. We heard from you that the small Lakeville alternative was the lowest cost, had the shortest construction period, and the least environmental impact, but was also too small. There was not enough parkland, not enough boat storage or slips or parking, and it really didn't add value to the community. Some respondents noted that there were no advantages to this option. For the medium Lakeville alternative, while many of you indicated it had more parkland, some responded that there were no advantages, and others responded that there were advantages with respect to cost, and that it was better than the small Lakeville alternative because there was more parkland. A number of respondents noted that it was a disadvantage that there were the same number of slips as the small Lakeville alternative and not enough parkland. Generally, most respondents were very supportive of the large Lakeville alternative as it creates the most parkland, has the most slips, parking and storage, and has the potential for the greatest economic opportunities and environmental benefits. The disadvantages were the construction time, the cost, and the environmental impact. I want to provide a reminder to you now about where we are in the environmental assessment process and why we're undertaking an environmental assessment. As we've said in the past, an environmental assessment is a planning and decision-making process supported by good science, allowing for a review by stakeholders and approval agencies. This project, the 1 Port Street East proposed marina, needs approval as an individual environmental assessment under the Ontario Environmental Assessment Act. That's the most comprehensive form of assessment that is undertaken. An individual EA is completed in 2 phases. The first is the development of a terms of reference, which outlines how the EA will be done. And as indicated on the timeline slide, we received approval of the terms of reference document in September of 2021. The second phase is preparing the environmental assessment, and this is the phase we're in now. Our environmental assessment is focusing on the evaluation of the lake fill alternatives and the assessment of the effects of each of those alternatives in accordance with the approved terms of reference. As we've spoken about before, we have project study areas, and these study areas are where we assess the alternatives, or where we might plan for the likely alternatives, and where we look at the environmental effects of those alternatives. So we want to remind everyone of these study areas. The One Port Street East site is located in Port Credit at the mouth of the Credit River. It is bound by Port Street East to the north, Stave Bank Road to the west, Ellen Street south to the east, and Lake Ontario to the south. The land area in the lighter shade of pink, north of the green area, is where we can put the Marine Services building. This land area and the rest of the water lot shown in pink are subject to a future conveyance that can only happen if the city proceeds with a public marina at this location. If the city decides not to proceed with a public marina, this conveyance may not occur. Our ability to create land is limited to the long green portion of the site to the east of the existing breakwater. The water lot beyond this area is not owned by the city and not available for use. Part of the green area at the bottom of the map includes the Ridgetown, and we cannot put fill in this area. The wharf on the western portion of the site in gray will be developed into a mixed-use community and is not owned by the city and not part of this city-led project. Any environmental assessment requires us to look at what problem and opportunity we are trying to address. In the case of this project, we have 5 aspects to our problem and opportunity assessment. First, stakeholders and the public have communicated the desire to continue marina operations in Port Credit. The marina site is one of the few deepwater harbors on the shores of Lake Ontario. The city is exploring this intent expressed during the Inspiration Port Credit master plan process. Second, there is a desire to support marina and other business activities for the benefit of the city and its residents. Third, there has been an identified need for the provision of additional park space and enhanced public access along the waterfront where none currently exists. Finally, this project provides an opportunity to enhance aquatic and terrestrial habitat in the vicinity of the eastern breakwater. Whenever we put fill in the lake, we are obligated to enhance this habitat to the extent possible. The reason for the relocation of this marina is that the existing marina site, currently owned by Canada Lands, is slated for redevelopment in the future. An environmental assessment also requires us to look at the existing environment. An environment is described broadly to include not just the natural environment, but the social environment, our communities, and the cultural heritage resources. And here's what we need to be aware of when we are assessing the impacts and designing this project. We are trying to take advantage of the deepwater harbor at this site for marine activities. We are on the north shore of Lake Ontario, and all lake fill activities must be able to withstand coastal conditions. This includes wave height and high water levels. This also includes resiliency to climate change and the changes in the frequency and severity of storms that are expected in the future. We have done fisheries studies in this area, and we know that the fish habitat that is here is within the footprint is not limiting within Lake Ontario. That means that it is fish habitat that is common throughout Lake Ontario. There is minimal terrestrial habitat available, and the Marine Archaeological Assessment identified no archaeological or heritage resources present in the area of the proposed lake fill or on the One Port Street East site. As we've said at the previous public information centers, an environmental assessment requires us to look at a number of different types of alternatives. We start by looking at previous studies and background information to identify what are called alternatives 2. Alternatives 2 are different ways to solve the problem or address the opportunity. We identified the do-nothing alternative and creating a new land base through lake fill. These alternatives were assessed during the terms of reference, and the decision was made to proceed with creating a new land base through lake fill, as it was the only alternative which addressed the problem and opportunity. During the environmental assessment, we're looking at alternative methods. And alternative methods are different ways to implement the preferred alternative 2. In this case, we've looked at 4 alternatives: the do-nothing alternative, the small lake fill alternative, the medium lake fill alternative, and the large lake fill alternative. As I said a moment ago, alternative methods are different ways of implementing the preferred alternatives 2. And for this project, our alternative methods are the different configurations of lake fill around the eastern breakwater to enable marina alternatives. We undertook a 4-step process to identify and evaluate these alternative methods. First, we determined the footprint for the alternatives. Second, we identified the desired design elements, or what needed to be part of the alternatives. And in this case, parkland, the trail, and the marina elements were all part of the desired design elements. To this end, all of the alternatives include parkland, trail, marina services building, parking and boat storage opportunities, and a number of slips, all based on the size of the lake fill. The third step was to undertake a comparative evaluation of the alternatives. And the fourth step, which is what we're going to present to you tonight, is the confirmation, refinement, and detailed assessment of the preferred alternative. As a reminder, these were the 3 alternatives, the small, medium, and large lake fill alternatives, that you saw at the last Public Information Center and provided feedback on through a survey. Again, here's a reminder of the criteria we used to evaluate those alternatives. And those criteria were categorized around effects to the physical environment, including water quality and disturbance of potentially contaminated soils, the biological environment, which is aquatic and terrestrial habitat, the socioeconomic environment, and the cost. And finally, this is a summary of the evaluation we undertook, which helped us to reach the decision that the large lake fill alternative was most preferred. And as a reminder, the largest lake fill alternative creates the largest parkland relative to the marina space and provides for a similar sized marina to what exists today. As the largest alternative, it also has the highest cost and will take the longest to construct, resulting in construction nuisance effects for the longest period of time. However, the effects from construction are short-term and mitigable, which means we can make them less. Well, the lake fill area and its benefits will exist into the long term. So that brings us to the step we're presenting to you tonight, which is our confirmation and refinement of the preferred alternative. We proceeded with preliminary design and refinement of the large lake fill alternative. This included refinement of marina elements, including area available for marina facilities and services, number of slips, parking, and storage, and refinement of parkland elements, including the trail. Development of a phasing plan and construction plan, including construction techniques and mitigative measures, and the detailed assessment of how the preferred alternative meets the purpose of the project, minimizes adverse effects, and maximizes positive effects. The detailed assessment of the marina and park space will be subject to consultation after the EA is approved. Just to be very clear as to what we're doing at this stage and what we're not doing at this stage, we wanted to show this slide. The Environmental Assessment Act applies to lake fill activities, to creating the land within the lake. There are certain aspects of the project the Environmental Assessment Act does not apply to. So we are not looking at those aspects in a great detail at this stage. An environmental assessment in this case creates the skeleton for the lake fill, while the detailed design will determine the details. The issues addressed in the EA are the extent and size of the lake fill, aquatic habitat features, mitigation for environmental effects, conceptual allocation of space for park, marina, trail, and parking, stormwater management, and the approach to construction and effects from construction. While issues to be addressed during detailed design and not subject to the EA include the type of marina services and facilities, marina access and security, and the fine detail with respect to the park features and landscape features. Here is the proposed conceptual design for the large lake fill alternative. You'll see that we've divided it into 3 zones: marina services and transition zone, parking and trail access to park zone, and the public park zone. I'm going to talk about each zone in some detail and zoom in on them so you can see better what they might look like. We have conceptually designed the space to include approximately 450 boat slips and the parking and boat storage necessary for the marine activities to be economically viable. We have included park space and greening of the lake fill where appropriate. And you will see at the end of the lake fill a feature which is part of the mitigation for aquatic habitat loss. And I'll talk about that in more detail in a moment. The first zone is the Marina Services and Transition Zone, which includes marina services, facilities, open space, and public washrooms. This is where most of the activities will be centered on the land base. This zone also includes vehicular access into the site and pedestrian access. Pedestrian access for the marina is on the floating dock to the west of the landform, and there is a walkway along the east side of the landform to provide pedestrian access out to the park space, and it will be treed. The second zone is the parking and storage area. This is where boaters and park users will be able to park, and where in winter months boats will be stored. There is also trail access along the eastern side of the breakwater to the parkland to the south. The floating dock access to the marina slips continues on the west side. The third zone is the public park zone. Again, on the east side, there is a trail that leads to the end of the lake fill, and we have park space and some secondary trails, again conceptually shown here. This is not necessarily what it will look like at the end of the day, because again, these features do not require EA approval, so we are showing them to you to give you a notion of what it may look like. One of the things we do require as part of EA approval is to mitigate the alteration of fish habitat. When we fill in the lake and create a landform, such as being proposed here, we are altering fish habitat, and we are required to compensate that habitat loss or alteration. In this case, one of the means of compensating fish habitat is the feature that has been proposed at the very end of the lake area. This aquatic habitat feature will provide fish habitat and will go part of the way to compensate the alteration of fish habitat. This slide shows what the landform would look like during winter months when the boats are stored within the parking area. One important aspect in the environmental assessment is understanding how a project will be constructed in order to understand the environmental effects of those construction activities. So we ask ourselves, how will the lake fill be constructed? We assume that materials will be brought to the site by truck and by barge, approximately a 50-50 split. Typical earth-moving equipment will be used to place the fill. First, coarse stone materials will be placed to create a berm or an enclosed area where finer clean fill can be placed. Construction may proceed from the shore out or from the outer end in, depending on the stone, truck, and barge availability at the time of construction. Construction of the lake fill and shoreline protection is anticipated to take approximately 14 months. Once this is completed, the planting, trails, and parking will be added, and this will require additional time. These cross sections illustrate the construction method of the lake fill structure. First, the outer core berm will be constructed by truck end dumping from the shore or by material being placed from barges. Second, the protection works will be constructed to ensure stability of the berm. Third, which may be concurrent with the second activity, the core fill material will be placed. And finally, the shore of the existing breakwater will be cleaned up and upgraded, and that would be the western shore of the existing breakwater. These cross sections illustrate the aquatic habitat area and its construction. The aquatic habitat area will be constructed using mostly the exterior berm material in its core. The material is expected to be placed from barges and from the created lake fill. The exterior of the structures will be protected to provide stability. The depth of the semi-sheltered areas and substrate materials will be selected to maximize aquatic habitat benefit. Structural habitat such as boulders will also be included. Once we understand how the lake fill will be constructed, we then take that information and we take the information we know about the existing environment and we predict the effects of construction on the environment. We know that there will be some increased turbidity, and that means turbidity means sediment in the water, so when the water looks a bit muddy. And this will occur very localized in areas where the fill is being placed. By using clean materials and proper placement methods, these effects will be minimized. In order to place the lake fill, we are going to remove approximately 28,000 square meters of existing aquatic habitat. This aquatic habitat will need to be replaced or compensated with new habitat along the lake fill edge and the new habitat feature at the park's end. Additional compensation may be required off-site. We are currently uncertain as to whether or not we can provide all of the compensation on-site. Noise and dust from construction activities will occur over the 14-month construction period, and these may be experienced by those residents living closest to the site when construction is occurring close to shore. As construction moves further away from the shore, some of those effects will lessen. In constructing this lake fill, we will use standard best practices to minimize noise and dust from occurring. We anticipate there will be minimal effects to traffic volumes, as we are only anticipating about 50 trucks per day. And this is a fairly small amount given the traffic volumes in the area already. We also need to look at the effects of what we are calling establishment, or once construction has been completed and the park space and marina is operational. We'll be planting native, non-invasive trees and vegetation in the park area, which will provide some new terrestrial habitat and enhance connectivity for migratory birds. We will have created approximately 11,000 square meters of park space and approximately 1,000 meters of trail with access to the end of the lake fill. We will have also created an area available to replace marina services and facilities and provide approximately 450 marina slips. The effects of marina operations on neighbors is not likely to change, as the marina operations are not likely to change. They are simply shifting from the west side of the basin to the east side of the basin. Future parkland and associated marina activities will be visible to residents living to the north and northeast of the Lakeville area. Within the approved terms of reference, the city committed to undertaking 3 public information centers at key decision points during the EA. This is the second of 3 public information centers. As I said earlier, we hope to hold the third once the draft environmental assessment report is available for your review. There is also ongoing consultation and engagement with Indigenous communities and regulatory agencies occurring at this time. We are also consulting with community and interest groups. We encourage you to visit the project website at mississauga.ca/1 Port Street East to review the project information and sign up for the email list to be notified of future public information centers and project updates. Thank you for watching this Public Information Center presentation. Please provide your feedback and questions by filling out the survey available on the project website at mississauga.ca/1 Port Street East. The survey will be open until September 22nd, and we will post answers to your questions following the consultation period. We look forward to receiving your questions and comments and your continued input into this very important project. Thank you.